And I think about just going back to the adaptive, maladaptive, and Nan, when Nan had dementia, like I would go around to Nan's flat, and as much as she could still make a cup of tea and make me lunch, I jumped on it, and I would do it. And actually, as much as I say it stripped her of purpose, I'm also stripping her of those adaptive skills. And like you've just said, I should have just been encouraging it and getting her to do it more and more, really, to keep that going, shouldn't I? In hindsight.
Yeah. So this is one of the things I've been working on for the last year. So obviously I've got a book out already called Targeting the Positive with Behaviours at Challenge, little plug there. And I've just written a second book, which is called the Adaptive Caregiver Model.
Okay.
And this is all taking various ideas that I've had or different models and stuff that are already out there, some based on principles of occupational therapy and stuff like that. There's a few principles that I kind of put into this, but it's all about what do I need to be as a caregiver in that moment to allow this person to have the greatest well-being that they possibly can.
Amazing.
And we took it as the analogy of the journey, which is, not original to me, but the journey of dementia. And we took it almost like the beginning of the journey when you're preparing the early stages, then you go through tricky terrain, and then you're kind of sitting by the fire talking about, the memories and the journey itself, and then you're laying by the fire and resting. And we said that at different stages of the journey, we require different companions. And in the early stages of the journey, we need a guide, somebody who's going to kind of point us in the right direction a little bit. Maybe you should take this one, maybe make sure you've got the right stuff in your backpack and those sorts of things. But they're very they're distant. They're kind of, hey, you're going to do this. I'm just going to give you some tips. And we use a kind of wording with that is you could. That's the wording that goes with it. Hey, you could do this, or hey, you could try this, or hey, you could use this cup if you wanted to. Let's say with you making a cup of tea. Okay, and they're stuck in that moment. Rather than going, let me do it, just going, you could try this cup, or do you want me to pot the kettle on for you while you could do that? And so we're just directing them. Then we've got the navigator. And the navigator is when the person's going through that tricky terrain. They need somebody a bit like a navigator in a rally car rather than a navigator on a ship. It's kind of the person's going and left here. And it's the kind of the we shall is the wording with the navigator kind of so we should do this, or we shall do this, or how about we try this. And it's a bit more collaborative to help them through the tricky ground, but the navigator is also moving any obstacles out the way to help them. It's not about taking over. As we move through to the later stages, and this could happen in a day, not just over a period of dementia, the storyteller is the next person, which is the person who focuses more on the sensory and the memory side of the journey. They allow we use a bit of analogy to this. It's like an actor in a play where it's you join them in the narrative rather than trying to get them to act the role you think they should. You just join them in the role that they're in that moment. And it's much more about connection than anything else. And then the final stage is then you are the companion. You're the one who's just sitting over them, watching over them as they rest, making sure that they're safe, making sure that their needs are met. And we've built this out to recognise where a person is on that particular day. So like with your Nan, there might have been times when you went in and, she was struggling more. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she had a bit of she was a bit poorly, or she hadn't eaten. So her cognitive capacity was a little bit lower. So she needed a bit more of a navigator when making a cup of tea. But a lot of the time, she just would have been fine with a guide. And the guide could have put things in place to like labelling the kettle in the drawer with it in and stuff like that to help her to do it herself. But it's knowing where that person needs you in that particular moment. And that's what I've been working on for the last year.
That sounds like a fascinating read and really helpful, and probably something that I would have loved to have read at the time, for definitely. But yeah, that sounds really helpful, actually. Yeah, really good idea, because nobody knows. I think you just go, you're doing the best that you can anyway, aren't you? But armed with a little bit of guidance like that, it's also soothing for a caregiver on, okay, it doesn't have to be the same all the way throughout the day, like you've just said, maybe about Nan, or all the way throughout the journey. It can fluctuate and change, and so can my role as a caregiver.